Welcome to Matters of the Heart podcast with Rashonda. Storytime Saturdays. Stories. They inspire, amuse, and engage. More importantly, they teach us things we didn't even know we wanted to learn. I am your host, Rashonda, and I'd love to invite you to join me every third Saturday of the month for a special Rashonda Reads Storytime segment. As someone who's always been passionate about storytelling, I feel blessed to have the opportunity to share this time with you. We'll dive deeper into some of the most inspirational stories of all kinds. We'll read amazing short stories, book chapters, and even current news reports. Say, anything goes. Storytime Saturday is the best way to expand your horizons and perhaps fall in love with a new author, character, or tale. So, are you ready to hear a story? Let's go. Hello, everyone. This is Matters of the Heart podcast. Here we talk about inspiration, motivation, wellness, and mind peacefulness. We share experiences, advice, and knowledge to help you improve your life and learn more. The content is 100% for you, and your host in this journey is me, Rashonda. Thank you for joining me today on this Story Time Saturday, or as I like to say, Rashonda Reads. This is the first book that I'm going to read in this Storytime Saturday series, and hopefully you get a picture of what Storytime Saturdays is going to look like. So what better way to kick off a Storytime Saturday than with my own book? So I am a blogger, I am a children's book author, and I'm an entrepreneur. I love all things creative and inspirational and encouragement, which is hence the podcast and other things that I've been blessed to do. But one of the blessings that I have been able to do, and that is to write a children's book. Now, I love children's books. I always have. They were just allowed me as a child to kind of escape to a world that, yes, was very fanciful and fictional, but at the same time, it helped me. You know, I grew up in a very abusive household. And so, you know, with that, I kind of use books as my way to kind of go into somebody else's world. I love children's books. My stepdad used to work for a housing authority. And he was like the manager or something like that. But when families would leave, they would always leave things behind. Skates, which is how I learned how to skate, toys, and all this stuff. But they always left behind some type of book. And that's how I learned to read. And that's how I started. I guess that's where my imagination kind of took its form, you know. But I absolutely love reading. So I thought I would start this Saturday off with reading my book, which is entitled Billy Wolf and the Kids of Heavenly Hills Elementary. The story is by yours truly, Rashonda. And I have a note from the author. It says, bullying is something that everyone faces at some point in their lives. It's a very sensitive subject that has tragically taken the lives of our children as well as adults. No matter how small or big, kids of all ages should feel safe going to school. As a kid, I was bullied, taunted, and on the brink of self-destruction because of it. While this story tells of an elementary school and some of the events are fictitious, bullying can take place anywhere and happen to anyone, no matter their race, origin, background, or culture. While bullying is an ongoing issue that struggles to get addressed, together we can use our voice to bring attention to this issue by getting involved in our local schools and communities, because one voice is all it takes to change the world around us. Billy Wolf and the Kids of Heavenly Hills Elementary. The day Billy arrived. Heavenly Hills Elementary was a small school, but it had a lot of heart. The teachers were engaging, the principal was nice, even the cafeteria food was good. At recess, everyone played together and somewhat got along just fine. However, like any other school, it had its share of issues and minor problems, like when Victoria Powers accidentally tripped in the lunchroom and her lunch tray came down on Micah Thornbolt's head, or I guess you can say her chocolate milk and spaghettis did. Outside of a couple of heydays or minor things such as Victoria's lunch mishap, Heavenly Hills was a pretty good school. But when Billy Wolf came strolling through, suddenly those small mishaps didn't seem so bad after all. Billy Wolf was tall, almost as tall as most of the teachers, whose average height was about 5'5". Billy was 6 foot. He had a small, dark brown eyes, and his face looked as if it had been permanently stuck in a smirk. Word was he was actually 13 years old, but kept getting held back due to his behavior and poor grades. The students began whispering to others when Miss Dobbins introduced him to the 5th grade class. Clearing her throat, "Now, class, I want you to give your warmest welcome to Billy Wolf. Billy transferred here from Red Leaf Elementary." The class did as they were told, and in unison said, "Hello, Billy," in their most pleasant voice. But that didn't seem to mean much to Billy, as he didn't speak, smile, or say anything back. Everyone's cheery faces fell into blank stares, and their voices went silent. Miss Dobbins asked Billy to have a seat beside Caleb Johnson, who sat in the middle of the room. As he made his way to sit beside Caleb, Billy didn't say a word. He slammed his books on the table and sat roughly in his chair. Caleb was the happiest kid in Heavenly Hills Elementary. He was voted most likely to make anyone smile by his peers. If anyone could get Billy to smile, he surely could. "Hi," whispered Caleb, as he turned and looked cheerfully at Billy, extending his hand for Billy to shake. "I'm Caleb. If you need help with anything, I can help you. We can be friends." Billy didn't look like the type to make friends easily. He looked at Caleb and frowned. "Does it look like I want to be your friend? Now back off and mind your own business," he said hatefully. Caleb, not knowing how to take Billy, slowly unextended the friendly hand that Billy hadn't bothered to touch and slouched in his seat. Everyone in class knew at that moment Billy Wolf clearly wasn't going to be easy to get along with. The next day when Billy came to breakfast, the students in Miss Dobbins' 5th grade class had already gotten the word out about Billy Wolf and his rude behavior. Kids from kindergarten all the way up got a whiff of Billy Wolf, who quickly became known as the bully. A month later, students continued to make an attempt to talk to Billy, but every time someone tried, he scared them off with his rude and terrible attitude. No, not one person liked the way Billy treated others, but they dare not say anything. Everyone did try their best to make him feel welcome, but it was very evident Billy didn't want their friendship or kindness, but their fears instead, in which he seemed to hold tightly in the palm of his hands. Billy basically ran the school and everyone in it. Quite a few teachers pulled together to have an intervention with Billy, but when they showed up to his house, he must have found out about it because he never showed up. After continuous complaints, Principal Nicely stepped in after many attempts on her own, including a call to Billy's parents, and whom couldn't handle him either. Principal Nicely decided to give him detention, in which no one ended up again, as that seemed to be Billy's new home. But no one can stay in detention forever, so once Billy got out, he was up to his old ways again. That's when Principal Nicely decided to send Billy to silent lunch, off by himself in the lunchroom. That was okay, as silent lunch lasted all recess. Everyone played in harmony that afternoon, but all good things do come to an end. Recess the next day wouldn't have a happy ending, as Billy was out intimidating the kids once again. A week later, he was caught taking brownies out of Mr. Weathers' desk drawer and was seen destroying the flower bed Miss Potts so diligently planted alongside the fence on the playground. He also ran into the girls' bathroom and made scary faces and noises at them. He pushed a second grader's face down in the water fountain as he was getting a drink and made fun of everyone who got a letter wrong during the school's annual spelling bee. "Go home!" he would shout gleefully. "Billy Wolf," Miss Parkinson admonished, and she put her fingers to her lips as if to say, "Silence, please." But that didn't bother Billy, who turned to display a mean frown but kept on shouting. Soon, Principal Nicely had him escorted out of the auditorium back to detention. Every time Billy did not get his way, he would make fun and taunt you until you gave in to his demands. That's what he did to Caleb on several occasions before class when he wanted to cheat off his homework. Caleb, like everyone else, felt totally helpless and gave in to Billy. He didn't want to be taunted or pushed around. You did whatever you could just to stay off Billy's radar, which didn't seem to help much as he always found a way to make you a part of his internal view. Billy Wolf had Heavenly Hills Elementary in the palm of his hand. What was once a pretty good-natured and fun environment for everyone felt more like a prison. Even the kindergartners were too uncomfortable to sit in the library because just the sight of Billy, whom sat in Miss Coca's open math class across the way, intimidated them. Therefore, Miss Persimmons had to have reading time in her classroom. When Billy came to Heavenly Hills Elementary, everyone was eager to embrace and befriend him. He wasn't the friendliest person, which is okay, but when your unkindness affects even the happiest kid, it has a way of affecting everyone. No matter how nice or accommodating you tried to be, Billy always found a way to dismiss it. He seemed to gloat in the fact of being mean and having a negative attitude, in which seemed to have everyone walking around on eggshells. Billy's behavior had become so uncomfortable, some kids began to complain to their parents, whom in turn began to have meetings with Principal Nicely. Other parents, not knowing how to deal with it, began removing their children out of the school, causing students to lose longtime friends. Just when school seemed dull and dark with no hope in sight, there came a light at the end of the tunnel in the form of a tiny third grader. His name was Matthew Pigmeyer. He had a sister named Ruth Pigmeyer, who was in kindergarten, and a brother, Mark Pigmeyer, who was in the 5th grade. The Pigmeyers were quiet, cool kids with a lot of faith, but that didn't stop Billy Wolf from torturing them with fear. One day, he sent little Ruth home in tears as he found a way to pull her ribbon ponytails out. He also put holes in Mark Pigmeyer's school bike tires. No one was off limits to Billy Wolf. He taunted everyone. There was just one person he hadn't had a chance to get, and that was Matthew Pigmeyer. Matthew was quiet and stayed in the library most of the time, especially during recess. He was always reading something and barely looked up at you through his glasses when you were speaking to him. Just when Billy Wolf thought he had gotten to everyone, it must have dawned on him that he hadn't yet taunted Matthew Pigmeyer, in which is not unusual, as Matthew was very short and small in stature, making him easy to look over. Billy noticed how quiet Matthew was, and from the look of Matthew's appearance, he must have felt as if he would be an easy target, just as his brother Mark and sister Ruth were. Billy may have gotten Matthew's siblings, but that didn't make him flinch one bit. As a matter of fact, none of Billy's obnoxious behavior seemed to bother Matthew at all. This was a challenge for Billy. So one afternoon at lunch, he conquered a plan to make a move on Matthew in the cafeteria. While the kids sat quietly eating and talking to each other, for once Billy wasn't paying attention to them. His focus was now on Matthew Pigmeyer, who had just come out of the lunch line. As Matthew stopped at the corner to key in his lunch code, every person behind him moved to the side as Billy bulldozed his way towards Matthew. Billy wasn't worried about anyone interrupting his plan, as he knew they would be too afraid to stop him. Billy attempted to stop Matthew in his tracks by jumping in front of him. "Hey, Four Eyes, where you think you're going?" he sneered as he blocked Matthew's path, glaring down at his lunch tray. Billy looked like the Statue of Liberty as he stood in front of Matthew, whom stood a staggering 4'2". Matthew, not looking up at Billy, touched Billy's left arm as if to move him out the way. Matthew proceeded to move around Billy and calmly walked to his seat. Matthew's actions suddenly caught the eyes of several students standing close by. No kid had ever had the guts or the nerve to put their hands on Billy Wolf, let alone ignore him, but Matthew did. This infuriated Billy, who turned around and glared at Matthew as if he was gum stuck to his shoe. Billy stomped over to Matthew, who was acting like nothing had just happened. All the other kids began to move to other tables out of harm's way. "You touched me," Billy sneered at Matthew, looming over him. "If you don't stand up and apologize to me right now, I'm going to get very angry, and everyone knows what happens when I get angry," Billy announced furiously. All the other kids stared in amazement, wondering what Matthew was going to do next. The only thing they saw Matthew doing was fumbling around with his mashed potatoes and peas. "Oh, look at the baby playing with his taters and peas," Billy teased. Without warning, Matthew stood up. Everyone, including the lunch ladies, in which one of them proceeded to the exit door, assuming to get help. At this point, everyone else stood still as they watched Billy Wolf and Matthew Pegmeyer. "Billy," Matthew began, now looking up at Billy with a firm face. Matthew had never looked up at anyone, so this not only got Billy's, but everyone's attention. Matthew, not thinking about the attention he was now drawing to himself, demanded, "You will leave everyone alone in this cafeteria. You will not torture or hurt anyone else again. You have done enough damage here, and everyone is tired of it. While they may be afraid to say something to you, I am not," Matthew shouted for the whole lunchroom to hear. "And just who you think you are," huffed Billy, with a frown turning meaner by the second. "Don't you know what I did to your sister and your brother?" Billy puffed. "Yes," said Matthew, "but you will leave me and everyone else alone from this day forward," said Matthew, now on his tiptoes, trying to stand as tall as he could. "You better say your prayers, Matthew Pigmeyer," Billy growled, "because I am going to," and before Billy knew it, Matthew pulled his spoon back, loaded with mashed potatoes and peas he was spooning up earlier, and shot them right into Billy Wolf's face. Billy, who was fed up at this point, charged at Matthew, but tripped and fell as Matthew ducked around him and jumped up onto a cafeteria table. "Look, everyone, Billy is down," declared Matthew Pigmeyer from atop the cafeteria table. "He ruined our school. He made us cry and ran our friends away, friends that were trying to be his friend. There has been nothing but trouble since he came to our school. Let's take our school back," Matthew announced as he stood on the top of the table with both fists clenched in victory. Everyone was shocked that Matthew, who was so small in stature, had this big voice inside of him. His words empowered the students to finally take a stand. It all started with Victoria Powers, who came to stand beside Matthew Pigmeyer and held his hand. "I'm with you, Matthew," she said, beaming. Following her was Caleb Johnson, who hurried over to stand beside both Matthew and Victoria. "No one should make you feel as though you shouldn't smile," he announced, smiling brightly as ever. In an attempt for peace, all three extended their hands out to help Billy up, but that was short-lived, as one kid shouted, Food fight! And suddenly, everyone began throwing food at Billy. Every time he tried to get up, he either slipped or was hit with more mashed potatoes, gravy, and peas from almost every kid in the cafeteria. Billy was getting more food to the face than one could imagine. "You all will regret this," Billy stammered, his mouth and face full of potatoes, gravy, milk, and peas. As nearby teachers rushed into the cafeteria after hearing the loud commotion, they all looked shocked and disheartened as they attempted to get the crowd underway to see that Billy was the target. Immediately, they began escorting some students out as they tried to calm the agile crowd. Things had gotten so quickly out of hand, they were struggling with knowing where to start and whom to stop. Billy was so humiliated and shocked by the crowd of students. With milk-soaked pants and more mashed potatoes and peas than one person should have, he ran from the cafeteria crying, "Stop! Stop! Someone help me!" Everyone was shouting as they followed Billy, who now was being hurried out the lunchroom by a bunch of kids, some with milk, some with potatoes, and others with peas. Who would have thought that this big old Billy Wolf was not as tough and rough as he had portrayed to be? The detention officers were called in from a nearby school to come and settle down the commotion and to pick Billy up. The officers had visited Heavenly Hills before as they were on high alert about Billy, but couldn't do anything as they felt he hadn't crossed the line far enough to be officially taken away. So they would give him a pep talk and leave. But this time when they came, they were in for a bit of a surprise. Billy, who now was sitting in principal's office, covered in food and soaked with milk, sat quietly. "What happened to him?" the detention officer asked surprisingly. "Oh," said Principal nicely, with a puzzled look dancing across her face as she looked over at Billy Wolf. "Looks like there was a food fight in the cafeteria and Billy, unfortunately, was the target," she said confusedly. "Looks like you could use a huge towel, Billy Wolf," the detention officers observed. Billy sat confused as he tried to come to grips with what had just happened. How could a third grader overtake him like that? His reputation was ruined. So much so that he never wanted to step foot into Heavenly Hills Elementary ever again. When Billy Wolf left Heavenly Hills Elementary, it took a little adjusting. Those involved in the food fight received detention. Principal Nicely didn't approve of it and stated that no one, no matter how mean Billy was, that didn't give anyone the right to humiliate him and make him feel like less of a person. Because of the outbreak, Principal Nicely decided to set up a positive tools for students, teachers, and parents on ways to prevent bullying and the proper way to deal with it moving forward. Meanwhile, parents who had moved their kids out of the school heard of Billy's departure and re-enrolled their kids the following semester. Miss Persimmon's kindergarten class even enjoyed going back to the library for reading time. And what happened to Matthew Pigmeyer after that day? While he also served detention for being named as starting the protest, he was forever known as the hero who stood up to the school's biggest bully, Billy Wolf. When asked how he mustered the strength to stand up to Billy, the only thing Matthew muttered in his quiet voice, barely looking over his glasses, was, "When you have faith, you have everything, including the power to stand up against your biggest and toughest bullies. All you have to do is believe that you're greater than your problem. Everyone has the power to use their voice to stand up for themselves in any situation, whether big or small." Just like David in the Bible. David was small in stature, but God empowered and gave him the strength to fight a huge giant by the name of Goliath, whom was over 9 feet tall. Goliath was a bully and had been making fun, teasing, and intimidating God's people for 40 days. Because of his height, everyone was afraid of him and dared not fight him. But David was brave and had enough. He wanted to put a stop to Goliath and his rude behavior. With a slingshot and 5 stones, he was able to defeat Goliath, and God's people won the battle. "I know that's a lot," said Matthew shyly, as he pushed his glasses back up on his face. "That's who I thought about when Billy approached me. I didn't mean for him to get hurt or be humiliated in the process. I just wanted to end the fear he had put into everyone by taking a stand and speaking up," Matthew said, now looking up at his classmates. "You have the power within you to also take a stand and speak up against anything that's trying to silence you from doing so. With faith, we have the power to do anything." And he quoted this scripture. "I tell you the truth. If your faith is as big as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and the mountain will move. All things will be possible for you." Although Matthew's Bible interpretation didn't play out as peacefully as he'd hoped, and he got reprimanded for his actions, Principal Nicely honored his bravery by creating a student courage group, which teaches students lessons on bravery and how to overcome fear. She made Matthew the president. No one at Heavenly Hills Elementary heard from Billy Wolf again, except for Principal Nicely, who kept tabs on every student whom attended Heavenly Hills. With her new preventive tools in place to help current and future students facing behavioral challenges, she discovered Billy's behavior was due to him losing both of his parents at a very young age and was shifted between several group homes. He had just gotten placed in the 12th home when he arrived at Heavenly. However, after much counseling, Billy's behavior improved dramatically. He got re-enrolled in school and worked hard on improving his grades. In an effort to bring about change within his own environment, Billy became a student leader to help create a positive school climate. His attitude had changed so much, he was voted the nicest student in the school. While Billy never bullied anyone again, his new mission was now devoted to using his voice to stand up for those who had been and currently were. If you know someone who has been or is currently a victim of bullying, please reach out to the following people: a parent, your teacher, school counselor or principal, pastor or parishioner, friend, or your local sheriff department. For further help, please visit Prevent Bullying, stopbullying.gov prevention, Stop Cyberbullying and Bullying, stompoutbullying.org, PACER, National Bullying Prevention Center, www.pacer.org. Nobody has the power to ruin your day, LizzieSider.org for encouragement and inspiration. And that is the end of that story. So I hope you enjoyed it. Listen, if you would like a copy of Billy Wolf and the Kids of Heavenly Hills Elementary, you have to do a couple of things. I'm giving away a couple of copies. First thing you have to do is send me an email to inspirationswithroshonda@gmail.com. Tell me what you like about the book and what was your favorite part. And what I will do is put your name in a hat, and if you win, I will reach out to you and I will send you a copy of the book signed by me. So I hope you enjoyed this Storytime Saturday with your author, me. I will be doing many more Storytime Saturdays of this such by different authors, different inspirational stories. So please stay tuned. Until next time, see you later. That was it for today's episode. I hope you were inspired and feel positive vibes whenever you spend some time with me, Rashonda, and the Matters of the Heart podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And don't forget to join me next time as we dive deeper into our spiritual, mental, and physical journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with your friends and family so we can grow our community as we all learn together. You can also follow Matters of the Heart podcast on Facebook to stay tuned for what's coming next. Stay with me by subscribing wherever your favorite music and podcast stations reside. And as always, watch your heart because its actions will follow. Thank you for listening. And until next time, take care.